Good morning, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and thanks for joining me for a Friday live chat. How this works, I have my live chat feed from Facebook and YouTube that I can see here on my main screen. And I also, since we're transitioning to Rumble, have Rumble open on another screen, and so I can monitor that chat as well. And good morning to everyone. Hello, Mark and Robert and Corky and Steele. And let me go over to the chat over at Rumble and say good morning to Rob TK and anyone else that's joining us over there. Thanks for being with us this morning. And also, if you're watching on Twitter, we do have a live Twitter feed. I'm not sure if it records on Twitter or not, or maybe I think they just leave it up for a day or two and then take it down. Anyway, good morning to everyone, wherever you are, and thanks for joining me for a replay if you're watching it on a replay. Well, I've my show this morning starts off with coffee. Coffee, please. So I hope you've got yours, and cheers. Um, I think this week, I've had a lot of fascinating shows and guests. I mean, not bragging, but I'm personally am fascinated by the content that we've turned up with our guests this week, and it seems to be building into some convergence of ideas, which I'm really excited about. And one of the things that I think we had this week that is probably worth calling the story of the week. And for my story of the week, I'm going to go with Jose Vega of the LaRouche Organization and the Schiller Institute, who, it's like things like this don't happen very often, where you have somebody that just appears and knows automatically exactly the right things to say, and is in the right place to say them. And suddenly it's a viral event that is making everybody reinvigorates your excitement about how we can possibly change things. So this young man, Jose, has been one of the youth members of the LaRouche organization, and he's gotten the training that they provide for interventions, and he's done an amazing job at this. So I'm going to actually share this with you all this morning, if you don't mind, because I think it's very, very important, and I hope that you will take the opportunity to share it onward, because it gives me the idea that we old folks are getting through to the young folks, and they're starting to realize that it's their turn to stand up. It's their turn to stand up for our, well, get up, stand up for your rights, as Bob Marley put it. Anyway, let me cue this up. And sorry about the noise from the mouse. Mouse pad isn't working, so I'm improvising. All right. I'm looking for the one with Seymour Hersh, is how he starts.
The one with Seymour Hersh, because it's a policy and press hall event. So shouldn't we be talking about the Nord Stream, since that's the biggest story of the century? And you guys, I mean, you have the executive editor of the New York Times there who came out with a phony story to try and block Seymour Hersh. It's just kind of funny how that happened, I mean, did you even acknowledge Seymour Hersh? All of you are executive editors of papers that broke Pentagon, My Lai, Watergate. Is this the same papers or not? I mean, is there anything you've gotten right in the last 20 years, or am I mistaken about that? I mean, it's just kind of funny because Iraq, wrong. Syria, wrong. Russiagate, really wrong. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. So the last thing you could do to try and actually fix your reputation is acknowledge that through leaks, we had to find out that Zelensky was going to bomb Moscow on the anniversary. I mean, if you're so impartial, shouldn't you at least say, right, that Zelensky was going to bring us on the verge of World War III? That seems pretty fair. While Julian Assange rots in prison, all of you got, fat checks because he's in jail for doing your job. And you know what? Tucker Carlson ain't no Seymour Hersh. But he did something you guys are scared to do, speak the truth, and actually be critical of the war, which is why he was actually fired from Fox, because you are all cowards, every single one of you. None of you have actually had any relevancy. And you know what? The mainstream press is now dying. Nobody's ever going to listen to you again. You have no credibility with the public. The only people who care about what you have to say are elite assholes who have nothing productive to say anymore, and it's dying off. So will you at least say something, either about Nord Stream or Ukraine, or the fact that Zelensky brought us to the verge of World War III, and the only reason we knew about that was through leaks? Go ahead. It's a free speech event, right? You guys are the press. Let's say something here. Mr. Khan, come on. You're the executive editor of the New York Times, I'm just trying to get into some good trouble here, man. Woo. Listen, Karen, get out of my face for a second. I got to talk to these gentlemen. Well, I just want to hear what they have to say. Go ahead. I'm done. You're not going to tell them to you.
Wait your turn.
You could project if we can.
I think it's important to hear everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.
I do think that we need to give our moderator a chance to ask other questions.
We're on the verge of World War III.
Some of the people in the audience also do so. Thank you. Really, thank you.
Say something about this bombing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Listen, don't stand there while there are people rotting in prison. Nobody said anything about Uhuru, right? The socialists who are in jail for being critical of this war. God damn it. Let's go. At least say something about the people in jail for being critical of this war. They don't deserve to be in prison right now.
All right. And that was Jose Vega of the LaRouche and Schiller organizations. Pretty powerful, extremely powerful in my mind. I haven't seen something like that in decades. And I'm very happy and proud to share it. What a fantastic moment that was. And now he's got, something like 70,000 followers just popped up on his Twitter feed. This is amazing, and it's a beginning of lighting a fire among the young people. For goodness sakes, I don't agree with everything that anybody says, especially I don't always agree with my good friends at Schiller. There's things that they and I disagree on. On the other hand, they're training people to speak out like this, and it was actually pretty well received, wasn't it? I mean, the moderator there said, thank you for sharing. We want your voice. Of course, they didn't respond to his issues. They didn't talk about Julian Assange. They didn't talk about the February 24th issue, which I didn't even know about myself. And what he's referring to is February 24th was the 1 year anniversary of the beginning of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, called the special military operation from their point of view, and called an invasion from the Ukrainian point of view. But when it started on February 24th, a year later, as that anniversary approached, people were talking about what's going to happen on the anniversary, what's going to happen on February 24th. Well, it's now known that Zelensky was planning to bomb Moscow on February 24th. And it was only through US people telling him, no, you can't do that he didn't do it. And if Zelensky had bombed Moscow, what do you think the Russians would have done? And would that not have immediately drawn all the NATO forces into an open conflict with Russia? And, you know, very, very likely leading us into World War III. So, Jose Vega, bravo, you're absolutely right. And more power to you and your friends. And I know that there's another dozen at least of people that are like you that are out there doing the same thing. But something inspired Jose Vega on that occasion. And he said all the amazing right things right in a row, and something kept the rest of them quiet. You know, you'd have thought that he'd have been shut up by the time he got through his speech. But man, it just got more and more intense as they started coming after him. And then they push him to the ground and shut him up. Very, very powerful and dramatic. So that's my story of the week is bravo to Jose Vega and to all the good folks that have been organizing these interventions. They're not all going to go well. They're not all going to end up with, people getting, a lot of visibility. They may very well end up getting locked up because it's a risk that they take when you go out and do that, right? You don't want to go out and do that without knowing that you could possibly end up in jail. So once again, I think it's time that we have to do things like this. And I am very, very glad to have seen that done. Well, what else have we been doing this weekend, this past week? Let me check in with you guys at the chat room. Um, see how things are going over at Rumble. Rumble, Rob TK says he's having tea. And more power to you for having tea. Me, I'm a coffee addict, so you know what's going to happen. I will drink 3 to 4 cups of coffee every morning. There, now you know. I am, yep, an addict. Okay, well, let me go back over to the YouTube chat. And we'll just say good morning to everybody. Robert Kovacs is here. And Steel Magnolia researching choline for brain health. Corky says eek. And we have Mark here from Housatonic Live. Good morning, Mark. Taz. Steel. Yeah, have some coffee. Corky, onward. Laura's here. And yeah, good morning, everybody. Now, next week, I'll have a show on Monday, and then I'm taking a couple of days off, just so you know. My wife and I are going to sneak away to the beach for a few days, and that will be Tuesday through Friday. So I'll see you on Monday. And Monday, we will have our good friends at Protecting the Nest. That's Tara and Amber and Carol, and we're looking forward to that. And then the next Monday, Corky Goss finally got what you wanted. Bob Grenier is going to join us on the show, 11 a.m. show on Monday. I think that is the 8th of May. So finally, we'll hear from the great expert on cold fusion and nuclear fusion and the way that we can get some energy without having to pay Exxon and BP and Shell. Damn 9/11. Okay. Yeah, mobster. Good morning, mobster. I would hire this guy in an. I would too. He somehow. I don't. His upbringing, his parents, they did a great job because his mind is clear, his speech is direct and understandable, and his thoughts are very well organized. And I'm just very proud to have seen him in action. Very good. Hello, and Angie Baker is here. Good morning, Angie. Oh, I like this. Yeah, you can make our point without getting belligerent. That's another thing that he accomplished because he was completely submissive the whole time, except for with his powerful voice. He has a gift of a voice. And Professor Hamamoto's here. Good morning, Daryl. That was an amazing show last night with you, my friend. Um, I talked to Daryl guys a little bit before the show. I said, "Well, do you have anything you want to talk about tonight?" And he said, "Yes, I've got something right down your alley, John. It's Beltane." A Beltane. Well, I haven't thought of Beltane in a long time, but of course, what it is, it's next Monday, May the 1st. And so Professor Yamamoto gave us a tour de force explanation of Beltane and the idea of sexual undertones or overtones, and the idea of the unity or the of the sexes producing life. And that's an aspect that I think we need to study a little bit more because we're tempted to think of things in terms of you're either female or male, and then now we have all these other flavors of in between or even around the sides of, this plus this, but not this. And it's all of these different categories, but it's all about the individual. It's all about what do I want? What turns me on? What makes me floats my boat, right? And what really we should be thinking about is the beauty of life itself, which in fact, as Professor, kindly pointed out last night, is the product of union of the two. And that is something we don't spend enough time thinking about, how beautiful that is and amazing. Corky says, my goal achieved. Yeah. All right. Well, we've been working on it for 3 or 4 months now, Corky. So hopefully it will all happen on Monday, the 8th of May. And I look forward to it. Baker says, last night's talk was really great. Thank you very much, Angie. And Corky says he's going to rewatch it. Yeah, sexual alchemy. Well, that's interesting. Rick Olson's going to meet some in-laws who are O'Loughlin's this weekend. Yeah, well, I've got a number of shows about the O'Loughlin's and the their minefield shows. If you want to look for my old minefields, they're all on BitChute. So BitChute is my channel. Is called McDuff Uncensored, and there's a number of, like 100 of them over there. I didn't get all the way back, but we did get back to I think 80. Minefield 81, I think it starts at, and then it continues straight on up to now, where we are now up to 211 of these minefield shows. So that's very cool. And please, if you don't mind, let them know about my dad, Tom O'Loughlin, and his really amazing career. And I've told it in this book here, McDuff Lives, The Life and Untimely Death of Thomas F. O'Loughlin Jr. by yours truly. And, you know, the the idea of O'Loughlin's all around the world and the diaspora of us. I mean, we all came from a very small part of Ireland in a very small part of the County Clare, which is the very northern part of the county, right on the border of Galway Bay, and it's called the Burren, Burren. And my wife and I have visited the Burren there, of course, when we on our honeymoon actually, and met with the great PJ Curtis, a musician and a historian and a writer of great talent. And so we've had a number of great trips over to the old O'Loughlin homeland. And if your in-laws want to know more, well, if they would like to hear from me, I'd be glad to talk to them. Yes, civility versus incivility. It's so important, isn't it, that we maintain our civility. If we don't, then we're fighting against what we're trying to preserve. We're trying to preserve our civilization, and you have to be civil to be in a civilization. Kathy Sue, oh, it's so good to hear from you, dear. How are you this morning? Yes, we're all doing well here at Mystery Island. Um, the Totos and drummer all doing well. Rick Olson, cool will do. Okay. Jonathan Kahn and the Harbinger series. No, I'm not any, I don't know about that. I guess Professor Yamamoto may. And Mobster's great grandmother came from Clare. Yeah. They're willing to let you have Irish citizenship if you have a grandparent that came from Ireland. But going back further than that, I think you have to make a special case. But I think they're fairly flexible, especially if you have some people over there that might support your application. Go back over to the chat over at Rumble, and now most people are still indulging in the chat at YouTube, which I understand because we haven't got that big of a following yet at Rumble. Now, I'm looking at my Rumble feed and I see 261 followers, and we need to get to 1,000. So if any of you haven't joined my Rumble yet, I would appreciate it. When we get to 1,000, then I'll feel more confident that I can let go of the YouTube channel. It's as simple as that. I'm going to keep on the McDuff Lives 2, and if they censor me on McDuff Lives 2, then I'll keep going on McDuff Lives 3. So be sure and keep in touch with McDuff Lives 3, as that's our last YouTube outpost. If they take that one down, then we are gone from YouTube forever. Not a bad thing, but I don't want to lose my friends, my subscribers, my supporters, the folks that have been with me for years. If I just disappear from YouTube, they might never ever find me over on Rumble. Oh, thanks. ECAT has put my Rumble link up in the chat room, so that was really nice of you. Thanks, ECAT. And hello to you, and how are you today? Drew Black says Harbinger is a good read. I don't know the book myself. And Brightmore Dinosaurs here. Hello, Brightmore. Thanks for joining us this morning. Yes, and you say it is good to get away to nature to decompress. And that's right. That's what drummer and I are going to do for a few days next week. Polly Walnuts. Hey, Polly, how are you? Haven't seen your handle in a little while. Good to have you back. Got your little froggy icon there. I like that. Lots of interesting news sources coming into my field of view. Of course, I've been exploring John Coleman and his short book called The Club of Rome, and I recommend that to folks. You know, yes, some people say he is a plagiarist. That's what I read one person saying, and perhaps he is. Perhaps he's taken stuff that other people have written and reworked it and put it into his own way. On the other hand, he's a good writer, and his theories hold water as far as I'm concerned. I think it's very much worthwhile to study the works of John Coleman, but not to swallow it whole and say, well, I'm just going to go with everything he says, but to put it into your mix. That's what I'm doing, you know. Now, add on to John Coleman We also are adding, as the past 3 or 4 weeks now, from David Livingstone, his work on the secret team, and from Ordo Ab Chao, his kind of magnum opus that you can find on the internet at ordoabchao.ca, because he's operates out of Canada. But great stuff. Really detailed analysis and facts that you might not have gotten anywhere else. I joined his Patreon, or we joined his Patreon. I'd say your Patreon gifts to me generally are going out either to buying books or to joining someone else's Patreon, such as I follow our good friend Professor Hamamoto and Mark Kulak and a number of others. So sometimes when you send me money, I send it back out to other people. But it's important that we spread what we have to keep all of the messages coming. So anyway, the result of joining David Livingstone's Patreon is that I get his weekly reports, and he puts out a weekly thing. And his most recent one was about Tucker Carlson's father, Richard or Dick Carlson. Thought it was very interesting to read what he had to say about Tucker Carlson's dad. Maybe I'll just call that up and read it to you. Give me a second, I'll find it. I'm going to read this to you just because Tucker Carlson is very much in the news, and we've known that his father was a director, the director of Voice of America during the Cold War, and knowing that should cause you to really want to know more about Tucker and his family background. Our good friend David Underdown has done a bit of a deep dive on this gentleman, Dick Carlson, but let's go ahead and add into the mix what we get here from David Livingstone. Here, I'll just read this to you. After college, Tucker attempted to join the CIA. He was likely trying to follow in the footsteps of his father. Tucker's father, Dick Carlson, is an American journalist, diplomat, and lobbyist who was the director of the CIA front, Voice of America, during the last 6 years of the Cold War. At the same time, he led Radio Marti, broadcasting to Cuba, and was director of the U.S. Information Agency and the USIA Documentary Film Service. 6 weeks after he was born, Dick was given to the Home for Little Wanderers, an orphanage in Boston. This is Tucker's father, Dick, they call him. With an enrollment of about 40 co-ed day students and an additional 40 male overnight students, Longview Farm is a private nonprofit school that caters to students aged 5 to 18 with emotional, behavioral, and or learning difficulties in the custody of the Department of Children and Families. The home was closed in 2018 after a history of problems on campus. According to police, a case of sexual assault was the latest incident in a disturbing trend. Crime on the campus either unreported to police or reported long after the incident. In 1977, Dick Carlson joined San Diego Federal Savings and Loan, later Great American First Savings, a savings and loan headed by Gordon Luce, Luce, the same name as Henry Luce, of course, a former cabinet member and close friend of Ronald Reagan, as its public affairs director. Within 3 years, he became vice president of finance. In 1979, Carlson married Patricia Caroline Swanson, an heiress to the Swanson frozen food fortune. Swanson is the daughter of Gilbert Carl Swanson and the niece of Senator J. William Fulbright. Great American First Savings was mired in controversy due to the bank's political connections. For example, in 1984, the bank received negative press for allowing Edwin Meese, advisor to Ronald Reagan, to be 15 months delinquent on his mortgage. In 1984, when Dick Carlson decided to run for mayor of San Diego, his campaign came under scrutiny for its close ties to Great American First Savings, which had direct ties to the White House. Federal regulators seized and disbanded the bank in 1991. In the summer of 1986, President Reagan announced his intention to nominate Carlson as an associate director of the United States Information Agency to succeed Ernest Eugene Pell. In June 1991, Carlson left Voice of America after President George H.W. Bush nominated him to be the U.S. ambassador to the Seychelles. In March 1992, Carlson became the CEO of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, quote, a private corporation funded by the American people, unquote, that produces and distributes programming for public broadcasting. Tucker Carlson has expressed support for Jack Abramoff, an affiliate of the American Security Council, the ASC, and the Council for National, I'm not sure, the CNP, the two organizations at the heart of the fascist deep state in the I think he means to say the USA, but it just says UA, so I'm not quite clear. Abramoff ran Citizens for America, a pro-Reagan group that helped Oliver North build support for the Nicaraguan Contras. Citizens for America staged an unprecedented meeting of anti-communist rebels in 1985. In 1985, Abraham became perhaps the nation's most notorious corrupt lobbyist when he pleaded guilty in 2006 to conspiracy, fraud, and tax evasion. In 1985, Abramoff also showed up on a list of people helping Oliver North to influence the upcoming aid to the Contras. Abramoff's lobbying and the related scandals and investigation were the subject of two 2010 films, the documentary Casino Jack and The United States of Money, and the feature film Casino Jack starring Kevin Spacey as Abramoff. Abramoff helped organize the International Freedom Foundation, IFF, in 1986. According to David Teacher, Le Cercle, that's the French name LECERCLE, the circle in English, would, parentheses, the umbrella organization of Fascist International, close parentheses. This is David Livingstone saying that Le Cercle is the umbrella organization of the Fascist International, was connected to four groups involving the Brian Crozier's Six Eyes American Allies, Abramoff's IFF, the Institut de la Désinformation, the Center for Security Policy, and the Institute of World Politics. The IFF's purpose was to counteract pressure in the U.S. for sanctions on South Africa by denigrating Nelson Mandela and the ANC as Soviet agents. Over half the IFF's funding was provided by the South African DMI, the Directorate of Military Intelligence. Among the participants at the IFF conferences were Ted Shackley, the CIA head of the JFK assassination team, William Colby, ex-director of the CIA and a Cercle guest, and Oleg Kalugin, former head of KGB counterintelligence. Carlson founded the Daily Caller in 2010 with Neil Patel, former advisor to former Vice President Dick Cheney and a member of the CNP. Prior to that, Patel served as deputy of Iran Contra felon Scooter Libby. Carlson initially floated the idea for the Daily Caller in 2009 at CPAC. He and Patel then officially announced the creation later that year at a gathering of the Heritage Foundation, another organization at the core of the American right. The Daily Caller News Foundation receives funding from the Koch brothers, as well as the Bradley Foundation, which is a consistent funder of CIA projects. And then he lists a couple of chapters from his book that recommend to follow up on. So I'll put that link. Well, let me just go ahead and grab it and put it in the chat. And I'm going to put it also in the chat over at Rumble. If anyone wants to follow up and read some of David Livingstone's work over at ordoabkeo.ca. So the attitude, I guess, is that he is part of the old conservative deep state. The ASC, the American Security Council, that's a Cold War organization that goes back into the 50s. So here are we looking at an expose of a Tucker Carlson that we'd all like to love and see he's speaking the truth. He's on our side. But now we see that he has all of this baggage. Maybe it's his baggage, maybe it's just his father's baggage, but it's there nevertheless. And without that baggage, he might not have had anywhere near the visibility that he has today. Something to bear in mind as we consider, who are we going to listen to? Who are our gurus? All right, I'm going to get back into the chat room here and get caught up with you guys. Baker says, my parents used to order Swanson food. I remember Swanson TV dinners. TV dinners, came about during my childhood. And I remember the first time we got them, you kept them in the freezer and we had them for dinner once in a while. I don't think my parents considered them to be real food. And I think they were probably right. Uh-oh, we have a shapeshifter. Melissa's mind has shapeshifted into a new name. Okay, well, we're glad to have you here, Melissa, even with a shapeshifted name. Mobster says, completely CIA. That is, I'm sure, referring to Tucker Carlson. Yeah, Dr. V.A. Shiva, the other candidate for president, I follow his Twitter feed. And that's one of the things that he's been pounding on lately is, look, do you not see what's going on here? You're getting from it's follow the bouncing ball. And the latest one is this Tucker gets all of the news. Tucker Carlson this past week has been a news thing. Last week it would have been something else and something else and something else. But these are all like, oh, and Bobby Kennedy. He also, if you look at Dr. Shiva, he says, all of these people are just puppets that are being put in front of you to try to attract you, and so that they can keep on doing what they do. And if Tucker Carlson is the latest, I'm sorry, but we have to accept the idea that when you see somebody suddenly pushed in front of you, whether it's RFK Jr., Tucker Carlson, or really anybody that suddenly appears but has connections, deep connections. And of course, Bobby Kennedy has even far deeper connections than Tucker Carlson. How can we accept them as a true uh, savior? In other words, a McDuff can they come in and clean up the mess that has been created by the actions of the previous uh, owners of the seats in Congress and the presidency and the Supreme Court? Can that be cleaned up by somebody who themselves is carrying around a bunch of baggage? And Dr. V.A. Shiva's argument is no, it can't be. You need somebody like me who is an academic, an outsider, but sees through all of their machinations and can clean it all up from a start of a clean slate. That is attractive to me. I'd love to follow Dr. Shiva, and I want to spend more time with him just because he also is a serious nutritionist. And so much of our problems today are caused by the horrible food that is the American diet. That's my opinion. Brightmore, the circle of the rituals, and the golden circle, the Knights of the Golden Circle. It's right. He's right. It's all the same thing, from the Knights of the Golden Circle of the 1840s and 50s and 60s to the Le Cercle of uh, Pinoy, and uh, I can almost remember the names of those French guys that were the core of it, Violet and others. Jean Monnet, I believe, is connected. Well, this Le Cercle is also the driving force of the Safari Club, which, of course, is the club that was created in order to carry on the policies of the deep state, even though the US government was officially not supporting them. But they create this Safari Club with Khashoggi, the Adnan Khashoggi, the father, um, and he becomes the core of all the arms deals. That is all connected to Le Cercle, and Le Cercle is called by David Livingstone the core of all the fascist organizations, the umbrella. And when you say the word umbrella, you got to think of that umbrella of the Travelers Insurance Company's umbrella, and the umbrella in that I can't remember the name of the game. There's a computer game in which it's all about the umbrella corporation and symbols and things that remind us of what's been going on, including the Wuhan BSL-4 lab, which has a umbrella symbol in front of it. These creepy symbols they put there for a reason. For those of us that are not on the inside, it just kind of gives us a little creepy feeling that we're getting close to something scary and we don't know what it is, so we kind of tend to back away from it. But from the people on the inside, they see that symbol and they say, "Oh, okay, I can go with this because it's been approved by the serious, the upstairs deep state, the guys that you really don't want to cross." Let's see, Tucker's speech before being fired was at Heritage Foundation and a very chummy, fraternal vibe. Yeah, indeed. Steel Magnolia says Allison McDowell posted a deep dive on RFK Jr. 9 days ago. Okay, certainly something to look into. Melissa, I feel for Age of Aquarius, always vigilant. Boy, you can't hear that phrase without hearing that music from the Jesus Christ Superstar. Kathy Sue's father used to work for Swanson. Isn't that cool? Now I'm having a little trouble sharing the comments for some reason. Maybe just give it a rest for a minute. But Brightmore says Hunter Biden wrote a college recommendation for one of Tucker's kids. And isn't it interesting? You know, the RFK Jr. I understand one of his kids was actually in the military. I don't know what branch, but in Ukraine recently. And you know, that's kind of weird too when you think that his son is supporting or fighting on behalf of the NATO powers. No, he's in. He's definitely somebody that has been part of the elite establishment since he was born. And I'm sure he realizes what happens if you don't stay between the rails. It, you know, one of the things that was said at the beginning of Jose Vega's um, intervention was that the Columbia University, the Columbia School of Journalism, and the editors assembled there were there to keep the dialogue between the rails. You know, between the rails. That is, don't go off of the track that's been prescribed here. In other words, their real job is to make sure that the narrative is the news. Their job is to make sure that the facts don't confuse people because the narrative is more important than the facts now. And that is how they maintain control, even though they're losing power right and left. As Jose very rightly said, those people are no longer journalists. They're now in the propaganda and psychological manipulation business. So how can we look to them for journalism anymore, even though it's at the famous Columbia School of Journalism? You know, Columbia is supposed to be the definition of good journalism. You know, anybody that wanted to be a journalist would want to go to the Columbia School of Journalism. It's a top school, hard to get into, and really a an icon in the journalism field for for decades. But if all those people are just going to stand there, and look, turn around, look and see what's this intervention and what is this guy talking about, and can we please shut him up so we can get on with our program? No, Jose Vega shamed them, and they deserve to be shamed as individuals because they're all part of the denial of the rights of a Julian Assange, the denial of the rights of the American people to their inalienable right, and the inalienable right preserved in our Constitution of freedom of speech. We can get everybody to consider losing all of our rights, losing that Bill of Rights, even though you might say, well, they're inalienable. I've still got those rights, even though they don't let me exercise them. You know, can you be free in a gilded cage? Can you be free in a real cage? We're not here to be museum pieces. We're here to take action. We're here to enhance the ability of life and human life in particular to continue and to get better and better for the next generations. Not here just to, you know, burn my brief candle and then let it snuff out. No, we are all here for a purpose. Every one of us. We're all unique. It doesn't matter what color we are or who our parents are or what religion we grew up in. When we realize that we are all part of a human family that is here by some miracle and given all this incredible world to play with, to improve each other's lives with, and to worship the fact that, hey, we didn't make this. I didn't create the biosphere. So injecting a bit of humility and gratitude in our lives, something the press doesn't do, something the pundits rarely do, but something that young people have in their internal makeup that comes with them when they're born. And although as we get older, it's harder and harder for us to take that chance, to stand up, to declare the truth, to speak truth to power. That was our hope in my generation, was that we would be able to do this. And perhaps we've made some progress, but it's going to be Jose Vega's generation that gets us over the finish line. So let's support these young people and let's all be kind, be grateful, be humble, and love each other, because that's the real message. Well, I love you guys, and I thank you so much for your support and for following me as we try to get everybody over to the Rumble channel. Join us over there at McDuff Lives. It's all one word. There is a McDuff archive now on Rumble, where our good friend Matthew Raymer is helping me to repopulate our book readings and old minefields there. They're going up one at a time. There, but you might be pleasantly surprised at how these books are fitting together. You know, he will be able to post uh, parts of my readings. Like if I read 20 parts of a book, well, you might see part 14 first, because that's just the way that it is. We don't have the ability to transfer a playlist onto Rumble yet. So that's what's happening. We are one show at a time adding our archive to our new Rumble channel, which is called McDuff Archive. And it's, of course, a separate channel, but if you sign up for one, you will see the feed for the other. So sign up for McDuff Lives at Rumble, and we will continue providing the best content we can and unfolding the secrets and pulling back the curtain on the deep state here at McDuff Lives. Thank you all. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday with Protecting the Nest.